Good.
I'm gonna get you one of those little clappers. Just
Dude, that would be way out there. We need a clapper for
Yeah.
the Van Cave.
yeah.
I've got a couple.
I don't know about you guys. I've been ready for the Van Cave all day.
Yes, I have too.
Yeah.
I have nothing written for today at all. I mean, zero. I have no topics. Just kind of need to sit down, have a beer, and bullshit. You guys,
Cheers.
Let's
Yep.
do that. Cool.
Yeah.
So, Tim, did you breed any yeast today?
I did not breed any yeast today. What I did today was
Sorry.
no, that's all right. You got to do what you got to do. Get your adjustments down. Get your levels where they need to be. No, we did not brew today. We are prepping to brew. So how it works for us right now, the brewery gets bottlenecked pretty easily, just simply because we're moving so much beer, and we have a system that we didn't think we would immediately outgrow, and we've sort of immediately outgrown the brewing side. So what I did today is I actually went in and, not to get too technical, but I basically moved one finished beer from a bright tank vessel, labeled and kegged it, moved it into the cold room for sale. That freed that vessel up, and I did what's called turning the vessel around. I basically cleaned it and ran powdered brewery wash cycles on it and all that kind of stuff, and I got it ready for sanitization.
Hell yeah.
So the next thing that I will do, what I'll do tomorrow is, it'll be among the things that I do, is I will sanitize that vessel, and then I will run a finished beer that's in a fermenter that's ready to be brighted into that vessel. And then I'll turn around that fermenter, because we need that fermenter so we can brew.
Right on.
Anytime you brew, you got to have a fermenter to put the beer in. So
This is large scale, or this is like home brewing?
no, this is at the brewery.
Yeah.
Yeah, we it hasn't aired yet, or published yet. It was a fantastic episode. I
Mhm.
got Aaron in here. It was really good. And I've decided to go to 2 episodes a week right now.
Okay.
So I'm doing Monday and Friday. Based on your recommendation, my fear that, I wouldn't have enough done, and I don't want to get pressed for time, because I am actually bumping into people on the streets going, dude, when's your next episode?
Yep.
Are you really? That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
It's funny. I had no idea. There's a lot of offline, I get
Mhm.
messages from people. It's kind of beyond what I thought it was going to be, but at the same time, I kind of hoped it would turn out like this, that people are actually watching it. And a couple of things happened. It is, I got the hang of the post real fast.
Yep.
Of all the, just like you said I would. I know. It's like, I'll never learn this. Tim's like, yeah, no problem. The second thing that happened was I immediately ran out of space on my hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So I just ordered 8 terabytes worth of goodness and to back up. And then Mike and I talked about doing an episode on kind of centered around my collection of weird board games.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Crokinole.
Crokinole and I have Mancala and Shut the Box and all this crazy stuff. Well, we need 2 cameras to do that, and lo and behold, Newegg had that camera right there on an open box for half of what I paid for that one, and so
Multicam.
we're gonna multicam, and my software supports multicam mixdown, so we don't have to worry about an expensive. I was amazed at what it costs for a multicam real time. Like if we did this right here real time with somebody pressing a button, when Mike talks, they switch the camera to them. I was floored at how much that cost.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but it's been a blast. I'm having fun, and people are digging it. So
That's all it's all about.
Yeah,
what it's all about. I know
that's
people
what
are
it
digging
is.
it, because people are telling me the same thing. I'm glad
cool.
you've decided to go to
Mhm.
more than one for now, because with the channel being in its infancy, that will help it grow.
Yeah, and it's what gets me is I'd promised myself I wouldn't care about views or anything, because this is chronicling guys like you, the interesting people that are close to me and the experiences you've led me to. And then it gets kind of big, and you get a guy from England emailing you saying what'd the guy tell me? I forgot. Oh, it was a question about my sailboat. I got
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So it's absolutely fantastic. I've had a blast doing it. And the best part of it is I am remembering so many things that I had forgotten just through the natural process.
Yeah.
And you guys haven't seen it yet as the time we're recording this. I got Jim Storms in here. And I'm not even going to, I mean, by now everybody's seen it, but it blew my mind. And what we had done back in the day, before the internet. And there is actually a moment, I'm saying this for you guys because everybody's already seen it right now. I had to just stop the podcast because he left me completely speechless at the end of one. And I'm like, yep, we're good. We're going to cut right there.
I know you've told me the stories a couple of times just from you guys. And, I'm excited to be able to listen to someone who may actually remember some details from it. So.
Yeah, it was a blast, man. And the one thing I was laying there in bed that night and thinking about, man, that episode is exactly what I wanted out of this podcast. And I should have called the damn thing Telegraph Road.
Oh,
when you guys hear the story, you'll see. But the best part, well, you know what? Deal with it. We're just gonna go through there, but. One thing I do want to talk about, I have been asked to record a musical score by this guy.
Yeah.
And I pitched it to him today. He had some ideas. He wanted this kind of, he said a theme for a film, something he's doing. And I said, okay, no problem. Give me an idea. And the way I do it, I send him Jim Dooley's, the drummer, the guy that records all the live drum tracks.
Uh-huh.
I sent him Jim Dooley's page, and I said, pick something out that you like. He sent it to me. I've been jamming to it. I got some ideas. Was getting ready to record, and I said, hey, it just so happens that the Tim Kreitz Band is going to hang out in approximately 24 hours. I said, would you be opposed to us kind of riffing on it, because we're reestablishing our studio rehearsal setup. We've learned a lot more about recording on this, so how about we just record something for Mike tomorrow?
Yeah, works for me.
And just, riff on it.
I'm completely okay with that, as a fan of the Tim Kreitz Band and everything. So
So what are you working on?
Well, this one that I'm working on right now, by the time this goes out, everything goes according to plan. It should be mostly live. It's a project that I'm doing. I kind of got inspired by you, just kind of doing a podcast format to it. And I'm thinking it's going to be pretty short, so nothing that's going to require just someone to sit down for hours at a time to kind of just, have to go through it and really listen to it. So it'll be little snippets of events in history that are so. For the day that this is going to be released on, I'll go into history, pick out a couple of events, and talk about those events that happened on that day. So each week we'll go in and talk about events from history that happened on that day.
That's pretty cool.
I was sitting around and I was like, oh, this would be cool to do. And I called up my sister and I was like, hey, this is what I want to do. And she's like, yeah, that sounds like it would be something I would listen to. And I was like, okay, and I could do videos for it and do all these things. And so, I'm excited about it. I've done a little bit of research into it. I've kind of looked into, hosting for podcasting and everything like that.
Yeah.
I think for the time being, I'm just going to kind of release it on just the YouTube channel, just Apple Cider Club.
Mm-hmm.
Just throw that in there, name drop that. But,
I will link it too.
Yeah, I'm excited for it because, like I said, I think it'll be fun to do. I've talked to you about doing some kind of logo for it, and I've talked to Matt about doing some music for it. So
awesome.
Yeah. We
hey, by the way, your mic's about to fall out of it.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That's probably why it sounded a little bit quiet.
There you go. The cradles are super tight because they kept falling over. I have seen some of the stuff. You have not seen it, but I have seen some of the stuff that Mike did back in high school.
Yeah.
I think some of the shorts, and it's amazing. It's you have a definite talent, so I can't wait for this stuff. And you guys don't understand, people who are watching the podcast, you've seen Mike on the fencing episode and a couple of others in the film, and you have absolutely no concept of how quiet this guy is outside of the podcast. We've had Mike at social gatherings and such, and we'll talk. And you get around guys like me and Tim, and you can't shut us up. And they'll, the lion's share of our social group is like that. And Mike will say something that will scare the hell out of all of us because we forgot he was there.
I think a lot of that is just me I love listening to people and kind of hearing the stories. And, I love picking up just little bits of trivia and everything. So,
dude, if I've watched a movie and then had conversation with Mike and my wife after, they're both just like that. And it's like, I think I'd have to get up and tap dance or something it's just like, ugh. But it is going to be, it's going to be a blast. Our band, we have been so performance oriented since I've been in the band. It's just that you guys had a thing going, you had a lull, I got in there, we hit the ground running and just haven't written and recorded the way we had all wanted to. It's, hey, I've got this great idea. Tim comes at us with some new music and we riff on it. And oh, by the way, you got 10 shows and it's
right
road and all that, which I love, but just to sit down and riff is going to be fantastic. And I'm looking forward to engineering it. I'm having a blast with this setup and I'm excited. That's going to be cool.
I know the people that I've talked to, and kind of going back to what you were saying about, the podcast and people coming up to you. I've had people come up to me and have been like, "Oh yeah, I heard you on your friend's podcast, and I subscribed to it because I want to listen to this and I want to see where it goes." And they're like, "Oh yeah, because of the podcast." And yeah, I'll talk. So, but real quick, I'll tell people that, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to just work on this new project. I'm trying to get back into it." And I'm getting these guys to help me out with some of the stuff for it, and you can just see it that they're already excited, just kind of based just because of you, or because of you, that they're like, okay, yeah, I'm into this because these guys are involved with it. So
it's been a kick. One of my friends is not a big podcast guy, and he was talking to me, and he expressed kind of with guilt that he didn't watch the our Cinematic Atrocities episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's just not into movies. And he's like, man, I'm sorry, I didn't watch it. And I'm like, it's not the kind of podcast you catch every episode. It's some of it is going to be, it's just going to be horrible. It's like,
it's such a wide gamut of subject.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that was the problem with my written blog. You, especially Tim, focuses beautifully on the motorcycle aspect of things, the Superbike blog and all that, and I was reading that before we even really hung out a lot, and it's a wonderful thing. I can't do that, man. I there's so many squirrels running around in my life. I can't just focus on one thing, and I'll jump around, and every once in a while, I'd strike gold on something to get big, and then I get the whole BuzzFeed rip off and all that shit. So
yeah,
and just like we said. Speaking of Tim Kreitz adventures, I want to talk about that new camera.
Okay.
Oh my God, that thing was cool.
Yeah, I got insulted on it today. So it's just kind of one of those things where, of course, it was another content creator who had a snarky comment about it, and I made a snarky response, and I thought I should not have done that. So
welcome to my world.
Yeah. So anyway, I sent him a message saying, "Hey, I'm sorry for that snarky comment. It just kind of hit me the wrong way at the wrong moment of the day." The camera, it's a 360-degree camera. These things are becoming more and more popular. Over the past year or so, I've considered getting one, but just like everything, they have in their own way become passé due to misuse. Just like drones.
Mm-hmm.
Auto-tune,
drones, any easy technology that's dramatic usually will become passé or trite in a short period of time due to misuse. That has been the case with 360-degree cameras. But what I realized with the first test video, if you want to call it a test video, using that camera is that it is incredibly useful, not so much as a 360 camera, but as a camera that gets all shots in all directions. So I did do some 360 panning with it. It's not one of the videos where you can, with your mouse, look at wherever you want to look at. I don't see myself ever doing that with the camera, because the whole thing about, and the whole thing about making films is that you get my shot.
Mm-hmm.
You get the shot I envision.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to throw the camera out there and let you just pan all over the place. And, that's not what, that's sort of I don't know, it creates some kind of weird cognitive dissonance for me. So I don't see myself ever using the camera like that. But while I did pan several times with it in 360 mode, just automated panning just to show that it was a 360 camera, I don't see myself using it that way all the time. The main thing is just it's a camera that's rolling that if something happens over here, but I don't have a actual, action cam or cinematic cam pointed at it, I've caught it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see where I'm talking about certain things about what's going on here in West Texas with the economy and everything. And I'm talking, and I was able to pan to that RV that I was talking about. See, there's somebody living in an RV in the middle of a parking lot. So it's very useful in that regard. And also, I have for the past 5 years, with regard to all action cameras I've used on the channel, I've tried to stay away from ultra wide shots.
Yeah.
Because they just bother me. But this camera, while being super, it's a really wide lens angle. I wouldn't even wager to guess how wide the lens angle is, but it's wider than the normal person's peripheral vision. And I figured out that what it does is it better represents the speed of the motorcycle, and it better represents the total environment that I'm riding through. And Roger Gertson, our buddy, we have a buddy, Roger Gertson. Yeah. He's a fellow motorcyclist who lives over in Odessa.
Dude, Roger is a West Texas motorcycle icon.
He is. Well, he's a legend.
More than West Texas. He is a
motorcycling legend in this area, and one of only two people I trust to work on my motorcycles beside me. That's how good he is. Anyway. We've digressed.
We did.
But he told me, it was him who told me, I like this better because it shows the environs, basically. And I started thinking about that. So I thought, okay, let me go back and look through some recent videos. And he's right. Even my regular, like if I'm chest mounting a GoPro while I'm on the bike, it's not the same. You don't get that same gathering of everything that's happening in the periphery. So I think that I will be using it on a more regular basis. Like I said, not as a 360 per se camera.
It's using it like that 360s, but people use it around. It's like standing in the front row of a concert that you want to see and turning around and looking at the audience.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Your opening shot in it, it stood out because it was different than what I'm used to seeing from the camera off your handlebar or whatever. I liked it. I loved the way it was framed. I loved that it was centric. That I don't know. That just worked. It wasn't so new and so crazy and so wide. Now it could be that I'm just getting used to wide shots because you see so much of it.
There's a desensitization factor, I think. So yeah. If you watch anything these days on Amazon Prime or Netflix or YouTube, or it's just one of the things that has permeated filmmaking is super, super wide angle shots when they're not always necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we are desensitized, but I think that there's actually a practical application to it in the way I've been doing it. So I'm going to keep experimenting.
There's a movie, and I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's a King in New York, I think it is. It's Charlie Chaplin, one of his movies. And he was making it right around the time that they were really starting that switch over from just your standard, your 4:3 aspect ratio, and then going over to that wide shots for everything. And one of the jokes in the movie is that he goes to one of the theaters there, and he's like, why are the screens so wide, and why is it so big? And you don't need that. You just need what's in front of you. And there's a gunshot happening. There's a big shootout. And you can just see him in the movie, and he's looking to the left, and he has to turn to the right, and he's going back to the left and going back to the right. Just because of how wide everything is, you have to, physically move in order to get the picture.
Exactly.
It's amazing going to, if you remember watching, you see a movie on TV back in you said 4:3, that's the TV box, to the way it was intended. It's amazing how much you miss. There was an anniversary or a big special about Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And they showed all this, and it was shot they had a lot of old stuff that was shot in 4x3. And it's amazing just what you miss in that shot and how bad it makes a shot when they cut it out like that.
So what you're talking about there is when you watch in years past when television was still in 4:3 aspect ratio, what they used to have to do with movies to make them watchable on television is they had to do something called pan and scan.
Pan and scan, yeah. Pan
and scan, basically, I mean, you're dealing with a either 16:9 ratio or even wider than that. 70 millimeter film formats tend to be very, very wide, very narrow formats, and so you'd get letterboxed versions on some of those and that sort of thing. But what they did for a long time is they didn't want letterbox on 4:3 television broadcasts, so they would do panning and scanning. So what they actually would do is a guy would sit in an editing room with a 4:3 box over the entire print of the film, and he was selecting what best needed to be cropped into 4:3 so that the viewer would understand what was happening by watching on a television. Now, there are problems with this. The biggest problem for me, just as a film guy, is that when you pan and scan something into 4:3, you're freaking redirecting the film.
Yep.
You are redirecting the movie. And so for years and years and years, that's just the way it was. And television producers and directors had to deal with it too, because for years and years, a lot of those TV shows like Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie, for example, they were shot on 16 and or 35 millimeter film. Well, you got a pan and scan. So they were constantly thinking about what is actually going to be in the shot, to make it conform to 4:3. If you go back now and look at the I Dream of Jeannie episodes that have been reprinted and remastered from the 35 millimeter, number one, they look great. Barbara Eden looks, better than she's ever looked in those. Don't get me started on that, though. But also you see where you can look out in the periphery of those shots and you can tell where the director was like, well, F it, man, because this isn't going to be in there anyway.
Right.
And there's if you look real close, you can see like where the set is kind of starting to end a little bit, or the lighting's not right over there. And, maybe some cables on the floor, that sort of thing. If you look really close in some of those episodes, pretty neat. But they're all now in high def now. It's really neat to go back and look at these TV shows that we grew up watching in 4:3, 720 by 480, that sort of thing. Actually, it was less than that. It was actually more of a 640i at 4:3 back then. But anyway, it's interesting to go back and look at all that stuff that's been remastered.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys I may be throwing some knowledge at you guys, at two filmmakers. Just one average Peckerwood is going to share some knowledge here. In the days of Blockbuster Video, they had their own format.
What was Blockbuster again? Yeah.
I'm gonna throw down. I'm gonna
jerk.
throw down my. I'm gonna throw down my favorite Andy Sipowicz NYPD Blue quote. Sir, if you have any more problems caused by your recent birth, I'm gonna have to ask you to keep them to yourself. But back it wasn't even. It was before Blockbuster. It was Premiere Video. It was a chain, but they had in-store TVs running that would show movies, whatever new movie they would pop it in. Well, and it was a movie that was adjusted to that TV screen size, the 4:3 you guys are talking about, in a very specialized format, that when you took it and played it at home, it had a crawler visible on it that said, hey, if the lead singer of your band who works at Premiere Video gave you this to take home and watch, he's actually committed a crime. This is property of... Because I really did have a lead singer in one of my bands that worked there, and he would bring us videos all the time. But it had, it was at the top it was at the top of the screen. It said, this is property of Premiere Video, and this is...
Wow.
Yeah. So, if you put it in their player, it wasn't visible. But it had parts of the scene you weren't meant to see.
Right.
Like I remember the one that stands out is Steven Seagal in Marked for Death, where he cuts off Screwface's head.
The white boy had you.
Yeah. He cuts off the guy's head, and you can see the prop guy's hands holding the dummy.
Awesome.
Right. And I mean, it's a lot of it in there, but it was a special cut for that. So I would love to get my hands on one of those again today just to show people.
Oh, man. Marked for Death. Taking me back to my Steven Seagal fanboy days.
Oh, yeah. I think we all had that.
Yeah. It was just part of being that age at that time. You were just like, I don't care if he's a fraud or half a fraud. It's just these movies are just, they satisfy me on some weird visceral level.
Have you guys seen Jean-Claude Van Johnson?
You have talked about it.
Yeah, you've talked about it. I haven't seen it.
Here's the thing. In the day, all those guys took themselves entirely too seriously, and they all made the same kinds of movies, and we all lapped them up.
Oh, yeah.
We did. And to this day, I'll watch a crappy Seagal movie and laugh at it. But deep inside, you still remember.
Love it down there. I know. It is an ultimate guilty pleasure.
Right. And Steven Seagal became a perpetual douchebag because he never, ever had any sense of humor about himself.
Yeah. Completely unself-aware.
Yeah. If you watch Jean-Claude Van Johnson, that guy is so in touch with it. It is beautiful. It's like Chuck Norris. It's the way Chuck Norris is done.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
But yeah, that was quite a beautiful thing.
So would you say Steven Seagal was yesterday's Tommy Wiseau?
It very much a little bit, but very very much the same kind of path. Now, I don't think Steven Seagal woke up a Tommy Wiseau. He was kind of nudged that way. Okay. If that makes sense. The Aikido style that he uses and all is impressive to watch. He really was at least very good at that.
Mm-hmm.
And then where it all started, in my opinion, editorial comment from what I can remember, when he was given an opportunity to, I think the story was he got several scripts from Hollywood people he was teaching in the U.S., and he picked the first one. There it went. Poof, it's gone. I can't think of the name of it. Above the Law.
Yeah, Above the Law.
He picked Above the Law, which when people would say, hey, is this an autobiography? He wouldn't say, oh, no, dude, I'm just a lucky martial arts instructor that got into this. I'm just playing a character. He's like, yeah, it might be. Maybe. That kind of thing. So he was the real deal for a while and sort of kind of redeemed himself almost during his cop days in that reality show. And then and the thing is, if you go try to watch his movies, you have to pay for all of them on Netflix, Amazon, whatever. So,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, that I remember that when the facade was starting to crumble around Steven Seagal and who he was and who he wasn't, and the actual capabilities he held as a martial artist. One of the first guys I remember ever calling him out in the early 90s was Joe Rogan.
Really?
Yes. And I remember Joe Rogan calling him out on, do you guys remember this? The Keenan Ivory Wayans show?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I do.
I know of it.
So Keenan Ivory
Wayans. See it through the crib.
Yeah. Keenan Ivory Wayans and Steven Seagal did a movie together called The Glimmer Man. You guys remember The Glimmer Man?
It was crap.
It was crap. Anyway.
We need to add this to our list.
Okay, we will. Yeah. Okay, so put that on the list. But I can remember Joe Rogan going on, maybe to talk about news radio or something in the 90s around that time he was involved in, or I don't know, before or after that, somewhere around in that time. And he went on the Keenan Ivory Wayans show to talk about it. And the first thing that Joe Rogan brings up is, hey, your buddy Steven Seagal, you just did that movie, The Glimmer Man, with, he's a complete fraud, right? In true Joe Rogan fashion. But he was even more full of piss and vinegar then than he is now.
I would not want to fight Joe Rogan.
No.
I don't. care what kind of injury he's having this week. But
here's the thing about fighting Joe Rogan. Number one, once you get to a certain age, you start pushing 50, you start realizing a fight is not something I'm going to do for fun anymore, because you can get injured a lot easier at 50 than at 20. So you start thinking about, okay, well, let's make sure we keep our knives sharp that we carry around, and keep my pistol in a place where I can get to it fast in case, because that's probably where I'm going to go first these days, But to completely lost my train of thought. Oh, Joe Rogan, the way he trains, and I've heard him talk about this, is when he thinks he can't go any further in his training or he's getting tired, he imagines somebody attacking his daughters or trying to harm his wife. And what would I have to do if I was, tired, but I had... And so he's got a true warrior's mind. He's got a killer instinct about him that I think gets maybe not talked about enough, or people don't understand it when they hear it. That mental process he's going through, that is the killer instinct. That is the warrior's mind. That's the warrior spirit.
It truly is. So check this out. I have an episode in mind on martial arts. First of all, I will not shit on Aikido as a martial art, because it is not it's not a street fighting art. That's not what it's about. It's about a lot of things. It does have some applications. I took it because that's all I could take at the time.
Well, and for a law enforcement officer, for a jailer or a street cop, man, those techniques can be pretty useful if you're allowed to use them.
Well, it depends. Well, we're going to get to that, because I have an Aikido third dan, fourth dan, I forget. God, I'm so sorry, I forgot. Close friend who I think I can get in here. And I also have my grappling Krav Maga instructor that's going to come in.
Oh, nice.
So these two, and they're going to come in together and talk about this kind of stuff. Aikido it had its place. It really did. It taught a lot of things, the circular form of fighting and a lot of the joint locks and all that. But at the same time, it's hard to keep control, because it is, I don't know. There's a reason that it looks as flowery as it does.
It's complex.
It's complex, and it's a way of thinking. It is a style of doing a lot of things, and it's tough on the streets. Yeah. And I'll tell a story back then of how it all came together. I have successfully used Aikido techniques on the street. I have also gotten my ass kicked by using Aikido techniques.
That's the same way. I one of the things that kind of changed my mind on, I think, we've all been involved in some sort of martial art, whether it's from fencing to, and you studied Aikido, and didn't you also study?
I did. I've done
Kendo. Was it you that studied Kendo?
No, Iado.
Iado.
I've done Iado. I've done Aikido, Kung Fu, and Krav Maga, and Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, so I spent the majority of my martial arts time in my late teens through my 20s and adulthood studying northern styles of Kung Fu.
What's the Pai Lum?
The Pai Lum is southern, and it's actually a variation of Hungar, but I did, you remembered Pai Lum. I did study Pai Lum for a while. But you basically, if you're wondering out there what Pai Lum is, look up Hungar, and that's where all the similarities
I loved how hard it was. Hard as in the way you hit, style. The way you blocked, the way you moved was hard.
Well, that's the Hungar and the Pai Lum started to kind of shatter my concepts about the northern styles, because I started to realize that you should never just block something.
Yeah.
Why did you just block it and nothing else? It doesn't make any sense. Why was this movement so big? So I started kind of studying Southern and started looking at the efficiencies of a lot of the Southern styles, Hungar being one of them. But still, Hungar was pretty flowery too. There's a lot of shit in there that really is useless other than as a physical training tool.
Yeah. That's a good way you said it, is that, and that's a lot of Aikido,
right?
That's a lot of other
so I discovered a guy here who was living here in town. I don't know if he still lives here or not, but a guy named David Lesser, and he was teaching he was teaching he was teaching the Eminbo Steppe Wing Chun style. And
yeah.
so I started studying with him for about a year and a half, and it completely shattered all my concepts of martial arts. And I got to study with Eminbo Steppe a couple of times. Pretty solid dude, and a really good teacher. He's one of those guys with one movement he could show you what you're doing wrong. Oh, well, shit, I'm doing that really wrong. That's going to get me hurt or killed or something. So, if you're going to block somebody, hit them in the process.
Yeah.
And that's the way that Wing Chun is geared. It's that everything that's defensive is also offensive. You're just basically beating the shit out of the guy. And so all the kicks are low and straight because you don't want to do anything to compromise your balance. So you're kicking the balls, the knees, all the vital areas that are low. You're keeping your geometry close in like this, so that you're protecting yourself with every offensive movement, and at the same time your defensive movements are offensive. And they started developing the Screama style and stick style weaponry. Mm-hmm. And the grandmaster of that section of that branch of the family of fighting, or he would always say, "Look, just hit the guy." Well, I want to make sure that my blah 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 and my form is and he's like, just hit the guy. He said, you're not going to have time to think about all this when you are in a fight, or if you have to pick up a stick and take it against somebody. Hit the guy, and you want to arrange your energy in the motion of your body so that when that stick makes contact with him, the maximum amount of energy gets transferred. So that was, and then not long after that, I got into my early mid 30s and I started getting hurt. And so I just I stepped away from martial arts and started doing other things, concentrating on other things. But realizing that was a big deal for me, because I still carry that today. Like, God forbid I have to get into a fight now. I'm not going to be calling back to my northern style kung fu training, those soft styles, those big flowery soft styles. It'll be just hit the guy. It'll be real forceful, straightforward moving, efficiency of movement with maximum energy transfer. It
is, if I had to sum up, and I appreciate the way you explain that. If I had to sum up Aikido and Aikido on the street, Krav Maga was designed to teach in, I think, a 2-week period initially. It was boiled down to teach conscripted military service in Israel. Uh-huh. So boom, 2 weeks, you've learned the art. Now it's gone way beyond that, because it's become a commercial success and worldwide success. Aikido, one technique takes so much muscle memory to learn something. And then the problem with it, a person may be moving one way, it may be a punch, and you start to control them, and then they'll pull away. So now you have to change that technique and all that. So it takes so much effort to learn it and use it well. Mm-hmm. Now the guys who can, they're amazing. Right. They're like fighting a snake. When you're rolling with them.
They're doing it. It's a life discipline for them.
When you really roll.
They don't do anything else but that.
And it's like when you roll with a good jiu-jitsu or judo guy. Mm-hmm. It's the same kind of thing.
Read a book one time called Zen and the Martial Arts, and it talks about the samurai and the way they trained. That part of the training was superfluous, in that they were not supposed to use it when they actually got into battle. I've never forgotten this quote. Well, I'm going to paraphrase it, but it basically says, a samurai, when he goes into battle, he does not think of defeat and he does not think of victory. He thinks only of cutting. That can be your only thought as you go into battle.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And that has always stuck with me. It's very utilitarian. It's very efficient, and it's most likely to get you to where you want your goal to be.
That's the fencing mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Mike put that up, was talking about fighting somebody a much higher level than him, and he put a touch on him, and he couldn't think about am I going to win? Am I going to lose? It's about that next touch. It's about,
Mhm.
what's going on next.
So anyway, so there's our Zen and the martial arts.
And we went,
discussion.
we took that right to
Yeah.
martial arts. It's fantastic.
That kind of makes me want to start training martial arts again instead of just.
I've been doing the auto again with after the surgery. I can't, hadn't been able to lift, hadn't been able to do stuff, and memory work of.
Yeah.
And the auto is strictly a memory form thing. It's not,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess unless if some guy wants to mug me and decides to kneel down and bow in front of me and challenge to see who get their katana out the fastest.
I'll tell you this. One thing that this podcast has made me realize is that I need to lose weight. I have not been looking at myself in profile because it's, first of all, it's damn near impossible to do unless you're looking at yourself on video. And I realized, Tim Crouch, you're getting fat, dude. So I've been dropping weight since we first started doing this podcast.
I had noticed.
Anyway, that's so. I've kind of been thinking about what I've kind of been doing different calisthenics, and I've been thinking about what kind of training I might want to do. But I'm a little bit inspired because I've dropped a few pounds,
That's
and so
cool.
I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
I'm on the track now. I just got to get really serious, and I'll be back down to 150. in no time.
Everybody's on some kind of diet now.
Well, I don't want to diet though because diets
Well,
never
what are you
work
using?
for me. Basically, I'm
I
just
got a break. You guys go ahead.
yeah, I'm just doing calorie restriction, man. That's what works for me. I can't do keto because I work in a freaking brewery, and so I would be out of ketosis 3 or 4 days a week. It would be impossible to stay in ketosis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just been calorie restriction for me, and then upping my activity level, and that's how I've done it. And I just intend to keep on doing it, keeping the beers, to a minimum. Like I didn't drink any beer at the brewery today. That's another thing, man. It's hard when you have a job where you're encouraged to drink beer at work.
Yeah. I can see that.
It's
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
to, so today I was there by myself most of the day. And the only beer I drank was I carb tested the beer in the bright tank before I kegged it to make sure the carbonation level was right. We were right where we needed to be on that. And so you don't want to waste that beer when you take it out of the sample port. So I had, 8 ounces of beer. Before this one, I've had about 9 ounces of beer today. That helps. For me, it helps anyway. It takes me a long time to lose weight and no time to gain it back. I don't know if my system is really super efficient at surviving. That's what I like to think.
Yeah.
Is I'm a really efficient survivor. My body's geared to survive,
Well, I took Aikido in college. I did a couple of semesters of that, and then kind of going from that, there's a guy at work that does Kaji Kimbo, and he's been trying to get me into doing that. And I don't know enough about it to even explain what it is.
I don't know anything about it.
The way he kind of explains it to me is it's just a mixed martial arts, and it takes a whole bunch of different techniques and different styles from different ones and kind of meshes them all together to kind of form another one.
That's what seems to work best. Mixed martial arts is where everything's going because I think overall, if I was younger, like let's say I was 25 years younger, I was, 26, 27, or 23, 24 years old again, and I was going to study martial arts, it would be Gracie Jiu-Jitsu all the way, man, because that is where it always ends up. If a fight lasts more than 15 seconds, it ends up on the ground. And dude, that whole Gracie school of martial arts, that whole school of jiu-jitsu, all the philosophies and all the techniques surrounding that are freaking awesome, man. Totally awesome.
That shaped police training because I was a cop from the time that MMA was not MMA with
it was
UFC.
Ultimate Fighting.
Thank you, UFC. Was they would have the Kenpo guy and some kind of I don't know. It was always just melees, like one guy just teared another dude up until, and then it started sort of evolving into the number one thing. What styles would work, and that came into police and military, just like that.
Yeah.
So I left the door open, so we have a visitor.
Yeah, you have a podcast dog now.
That is our favorite podcast dog.
I have to pay. She's like the mafia. I'd have to pay her off to leave, or this is what we're dealing with.
Amazing.
I left the door open when I made it. But yeah, so that's where we are with the podcast, and I've had a blast doing it. We have a lot more planned, and I got some other people coming in. I have friends from out of town wanting to swing in and do stuff. We appreciate any suggestions, comments, or anything you might want to see different.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you the hardest thing about this, when I sit doing a radio show with you, or when I teach, and most of what I do is teaching, I know what I'm going to say. I'm very rehearsed, very prepared. Not repeating yourself, not saying not saying especially when my brain is going, that is killing me. It's horrible. I hate what I'm doing. It's just ugh. So it's so difficult to not do that.
Yeah, in radio, I learned early on that you don't need to talk as quickly as you think you do.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was making me do ahs and ums and that sort of thing is trying to speak too quickly. And so one of the things that if I'm not completely relaxed in a situation like this, whether I'm on the air on terrestrial radio or doing a podcast or doing a video on my YouTube channel, whatever, I will intentionally slow my language down because I will allow my thoughts, hopefully, to catch up with my mouth. And that usually results in fewer ums and ahs and that sort of thing. That's what's helped me personally. So
how do you do it? Because your words on your channel don't seem rehearsed, but you're just really squared away. I mean, how do you?
It's good that they don't seem rehearsed. I'll be there, and I don't ever go into it or I rarely go into it with a set, script out in front of me saying I have to say this and I have to make sure I say this. And so I'll usually just kind of start talking at the camera, kind of have an idea, here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. I have to hit these points. And then after that, that's it. And so I'll sit in front of the camera, start talking, and then, something will happen, or I'll stop and start going in with ums or ahs, or, I'll flub a line, and then it's like, okay, I got to stop that. I got to go back to this point and just go back and redo that section.
It doesn't seem that way though. Your
Yeah.
sound is really good too. I like your mic.
It's good that it doesn't. It doesn't sound like that. Yeah. I'll watch it. And I'm like, that's where I did that, or that's where I did that, and I shouldn't have done that. But
yeah, well, you were the only one that was inside your head when you were saying those things, and you're comparing what came out to what you may have intended or what you were thinking about at the time. That can be kind of a bad thing because nobody else knows that.
I think whenever I kind of watch, some of the stuff that I've done, it always seems like I kind of talk faster than I really mean to. Yeah. And I may start implementing that, kind of just slow down and really kind of think about.
It's my nature to speak quickly anyway. So I usually will try to start off a little slower. I'll end up getting fast at some point.
Yeah.
Realize it. And then, hey, calm down, dude. It's all good. You don't have to, you're not reciting the dictionary here. There's no time limit on this. Just slow down a little bit. So, and I find that it's a little more pleasant for others to listen to as well. So.
Yeah. Well, I've gotten a lot of compliments on the sound.
Yeah, it sounds good.
And we tinkered with it and did a smoke test, not as in smoke like software test, but we lit up some cigars and ran the smoke removal system, and it is perfect.
Nice.
So, but when it was the last time we had a podcast where everybody smokes cigars, so it's not. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it would just be you tonight.
Yeah. And just not in the mood, but.
Well, I will say this: thanks for making us regular part of this. Yeah. Here's to many more episodes to come.
Roger that, gentlemen. Thank you.
Always a highlight of the week whenever I find out I'm going to be on this. So
I just needed it today. Cheers. Thanks, folks.
Cheers. Good night. That was a good one.